the big ball. Going for the big shot, and he hits it.
That's batted into the air, intercepted, and the Bears are going to win it.
So we spent the first hour of this recording talking about the stuff such as the film from our own high school teams and all the concepts that we're running. Nick is officially calling me a never happy football coach, which I guess if you look at me on the sidelines, some of our film is 110% true. Welcome to the Halas Beat, brought to you by the Bear Report. Check us out on Twitter @_Nick Whalen, @Usayd Koshul, @Halas Beat. I guess, dude, where do we go from here? This is draft week's officially here. Draft starts Thursday. I mean, ton of stuff happening. We're going to get into some scenarios today, some hot takes. First off, I got to ask you, I know you've been under the weather. How's everything going?
Yeah, I finally feel better. It was like cold, fevery, low energy. I'm just glad I feel like a normal person again. Like it when you're sick, it stinks because you feel like you can't do anything. And I feel like just so lazy, and I feel bad for my wife because I'm like what'd you do? I'm like, I did like one load of laundry, like it's like that's like what I had the energy to do. Besides we're puppy sitting, so I'm basically taking care of a puppy, and we have 4 dogs total. So that's like my big things I got done. I'm like, man, that wasn't good for like a whole day, but I'm good. I got energy, man. I got a run in today. I got a little scouting done today. I'm ready. What I want to do, man. And I know I texted you this, but draft week, like let's just like throw out our Bears hot takes for the draft, like genre of what we want, who we don't want, like themes, things like that. I've got like a list here because one, I think it'll be funny to come back to this and be like, okay, I was way off, or we were right, and then our listeners can make fun of us too. So, do you want me to start off, or do you want to start off with our draft hot takes?
So I'm going to get started here, dude. And full disclosure, yesterday led to me tweeting something incredibly passive-aggressive, which is somewhat of my nature when I talk about the Bears sometimes, because they're either going to really do something that makes all of us happy, or they're going to do something that makes us question why we continue to be fans and reporters and analysts for this team. But like I said yesterday, I was like, the takes on this app today, because everything some way somehow started around Kelvin Banks Jr. yesterday, I was like, is further proof that we're all just ready for the draft to go ahead and be here. And that we're at that like weird point in April now where you're just like, all right, the league needs an extra week to kind of get everything for the draft together, But us as like analysts and reporters, we're just so ready for it to be here because of all the craziness that's gone down. I mean, I think perhaps my biggest hot take, which generated some sort of controversy yesterday on Twitter, was talking about Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet, and how I specifically said, I was like, it is totally possible that if the Bears want to upgrade the passing game, Colston Loveland has to be the guy. But it's also totally possible that I do think he's worthy of a top 10 pick. And number 3, there's nothing wrong with having 2 really good tight ends. And for the whole like Ben Johnson loves 12 personnel crowd, he doesn't love 12 personnel just because it's a good running formation. He also loves it because 12 personnel opens up your passing game in a pass happy league. And so for everyone that was just like, Colston Loveland's got the shoulder injury at this point, like to me, I feel like me having to get out there and bang the door down for Loveland is basically this sort of like Bears fans diminish him more than any other prospect. People diminish Colston Loveland, not even Bears fans. People diminish the hell out of him more than any other prospect. One, because let's call it how it is. In the Midwest, you either love Ohio State or Notre Dame or Michigan, but if you like one of the other 3, if you like one, then you probably hate the other 2, right? So I feel like there's a lot of, Michigan hate that's going on, okay? But then the second thing is this: Michigan, as you mentioned, could not throw the ball last year because J.J. McCarthy was not their quarterback anymore. The third thing to really mention here, I think, is more significant than anything, is the fact that it's like people don't want Colston Loveland because of his shoulder injury. Now, I guarantee you, if the medicals checked out and there was no shoulder injury and Michigan was able to throw the football, and Colson Loveland was, if he had the production of a guy like a Harold Fanning Jr., who's a tier below Loveland and Warren, by the way, then everybody would be like Colson Loveland to the Bears, Colson Loveland to the Bears.
Yeah. All right, you one, I like it. I appreciate it. You came out hot. Proud of you. Okay. We have to table the Kelvin Banks one because I got to get into that one too. But okay, let's stick with the tight end one. So in terms of them as prospects, they're very different, y'all. Colson Loveland is a better route runner. I think he's a more explosive athlete. Yes, there's a shoulder thing going on, but also let's look at this part. He's got 1 inch longer arms. He's got bigger hands. And he's almost 2 years younger. It's just under 2 years younger than Tyler Warren. And he's a better blocker. So you put those things together, you think of like jump ball scenarios, those arms are going to be better. You think blocking, locking out. I mean, we talked about arm length with Will Campbell and all these guys. Maybe the arm length's better for some other stuff. So I'm slowly going into Colson Loveland over Tyler Warren. I wouldn't be mad at either one. I think they're both good football players. However, okay, so with on that part of it, I'm with you. Okay. My hot take, which will go off of your hot take, I don't want either of them at 10. I just don't. I think that they're good football players. I think that they will help the Bears. I think that you're talking about with 12 personnel, with run action, play action, passing game, running game, they'll help out with everything.
So, okay.
I just know that they're I think that we have a little bit of look what Brock Bowers did last year. Like now let's get these tight ends. When we've seen historically, most tight ends don't do what you want them to do when you draft them high. And it's an overdrafted pick. And so I would much rather wait to 39-41 for not Harold Fanning, who you talked about, Mason Taylor. I like him. Jason Taylor's son, by the way, people don't know that guy, Hall of Famer, pretty good. I think that's a better value if we're talking about, where to get guys than getting either of these guys at 10.
First off, I totally agree with you there. I can see an argument for and against why the Bears should not go ahead and take a tight end at number 10 overall. And you're right, it is a very deep tight end class to the point where, there's the argument of like, hey, the Bears shouldn't take a running back at 10th overall simply because this is a very deep class. Now, let's call it out as some of the other content creators on Bears Twitter, and again, I'm not going to name names because just out of respect to people, but there are people that are like, well, the Bears are going to take Ashton Jeanty if he's on the board. He's a slam dunk pick. Okay, I am going to come in with a second hot take, dude. I don't necessarily think that he is a slam dunk pick for the Bears because I fully believe that what's happening right now at Halas is you look at what Dan Rouchar said a couple days ago, right? When all the assistant coaches had kind of talked to the media. And again, like we get transcribed quotes in our inboxes, okay, from Bears PR, and some of the other guys on the beat. But what had happened is this, right? Is Dan Rouchar was pretty much like, someone asked him about arm length and offensive tackles. And then he's like, well, I'm pretty sure you're alluding to Will Campbell there. You turn the tape on, the short arms don't necessarily seem to be a problem. And so to me, where I'm going with this discussion is that what if the Bears end up in a situation where Will Campbell's on the board, Armand Membu's on the board, and Ashton Jeanty's on the board? Now, it's a highly unlikely scenario, but of the three, I would take Will Campbell over Ashton Jeanty, simply because you're talking about a team that if you go back and you look at the draft history, at least in our lifetimes, they've never taken a offensive tackle in the top 10 in like almost consecutive years, right? Like you took Darnell Wright in 2023 at 10th overall. Last year, all right, you had Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, which, again, solid haul, but there's also an argument to be made that you could have taken Olu Fashanu, which, again, you didn't, okay? Which, had the Bears taken Olu last year, I would have been saying Tet McMillan this year, okay? But they got Rome Odunze, okay? And now you look at it, and now it's like, what if there is a situation where it's Membu, Campbell, Jeanty? A lot of people are going to bang the drum for Jeanty because they're going to be okay with Braxton Jones and Kiran. I would even go so far as to say this, though, like, I do think that Will Campbell makes the most sense if it comes down to one of those three. Now, that's not me diminishing Karan in any way, shape, or form, but I still believe that Karan can go ahead and be a very solid asset to this team. And again, you're forgetting, right? We talked about this on the last episode a few days ago where it was like, all right, well, what happens if the Bears don't extend Joe Thuney? You know who should be next up in line? Karan, right? To start at guard or tackle possibly based on whatever the Bears do this Thursday.
Wow. I love this, man. This is awesome. The more we get closer to the draft, the more I'm against all of these tackles. I would not take, I don't know. I'm at this point, I wouldn't take an O-lineman in round one. One thing that's interesting to me too, that's some new stuff is John Ledyard, another guy that I like, talked about Will Campbell's wingspan. People don't talk about this enough. His wingspan is like 0th percentile since 1999. He said, here are guys that are like somewhat close to his wingspan. Okay. That notable guys: Josh Myers, Kendrick Green, Brian Allen, Drew Dahlman, Garrett Bradbury, Tyler Linderbaum, Coleman Shelton, Billy Price, Will Clapp. Almost all centers. Tackles don't live out there when their shoulders are this far and they can't, shut down blitzers, stunts, tall guys. And I've seen on tape. I mean, of course, whatever Dan Richard's going to say publicly before the draft, but I've seen his length is affected. So where I'm going to go, man, my first hot take, I guess my second one, is I want the Bears to swing for a home run and not a single. That's what I want. Getting Kelvin Banks at 10 feels like a single. He feels like a guy that maybe he's a little bit better than Braxton Jones. That's where he's at, because I have a bunch of guys that I follow. I mean, Duke Merriweather, Brandon Thorne, even Dane Brugler, like they have him at guard. They're like, hey, he could be a good guard. He's a tackle. That's not the 10th pick to me. Swing for a home run, okay? Now, there's some home runs that I don't want them to go for, which we'll talk about later. But, so a home run to me is trading up for, and against you here, Genty, Carter, or Graham. Those guys are the best three guys I think that they could reasonably get, with Travis Hunter likely going to. Or taking Mike Green. So I'm going to dive into just those guys quickly. I would take Genty over your two tackle options. One, because I'm not sure either of those guys are a left tackle, and I'm not sure how good they would be as left tackles, better than Braxton, because if we want to improve the Bears, we want to improve them the most. DeAndre Swift was, again, I said this a long time ago, dead last, net yards gained above replacement per carry, okay, above expected. It was like negative 0.6, I believe. I think it was 18th in the league. Would have been plus 0.04. So if you combine those and you go, hey, reasonably, Genty comes in and he's 18th in terms of expected yards over expectation per carry, okay? And it's 0.4. He would get one more yard every carry than Swift would get, which would put the Bears in second and fives and third and twos, etc. So besides that, man, I think he's special. I'm not going to get too crazy, but I think he's very, very special. I mean, leaps and bounds, multiple tiers in front of the other running backs in this class. Lastly is Mike Green. So if you look at like the two areas that Chicago could help their team the most right now, it's improving at running back, which I think is massive. People see that. Swift left a lot of meat on the bone. The other one is a pass rusher. So talking about what the coaches said, Dennis Allen talked about using Dio as a pass rusher on the interior. So that leaves another guy on the outside. And I know people have the off the field stuff. That's the first thing they say with Mike Green. The latest that I've heard, Dane Brugler said this in the Beast. His current head coach, or his head coach at Marshall, had the best things to say about him in terms of his character and how just humble of a guy he is. Chris Sims said, from what he has heard and where he's being mocked, Mike Green, that teams look comfortable with the background stuff. Okay, so let's put that stuff aside. Again, we don't know. I don't know. You said you don't know. Like, we don't know. We're just going for what people say. Mike Green is a game changer pass rusher. The Bears need one of those guys We don't have one. We were hoping Austin Booker can maybe get there. But in terms of Mike Green, y'all, his pro day, 6.85 3-cone, 95th percentile, 4.25 short shuttle. That's, I think it was like 73rd percentile. 28 bench press reps, 91st percentile. And he led the nation in sacks. And one guy said this best off on PFF. I can't remember. I was watching one of their pre-draft stuff. He said if he was wearing an Ohio State helmet, he'd be a top 5 pick. And Abdul Carter wasn't, you know what I mean? You'd think this guy's Abdul Carter. Like, that's how good of a pass rusher he is. So if you think of what we need, why don't we get the pass rusher? Because it's so important to protect Caleb Williams. Instead, we can go get those quarterbacks with an elite guy.
And to your point about, and the PFF guy's point about, like, hey, you know, if this guy was in another program, as in a much bigger name program, then he would end up being a top 5, top 10 pick. You know, it is so interesting to me how every year there tends to be that, like, one player where something pops up and then they end up slipping through the cracks, and all of a sudden, boom, you know, guys are ready to go and ready to basically end up being really damn good contributors. Okay, so I don't know if you answered this already, but Drew Black 3363 asked on Twitter. He's like, Nick, I love your stuff, but I would challenge you on Kelvin Banks Jr. because I promised Drew that we'd answer this question. So Drew's asking, how many games have you watched of his? I think he's one of the best tackles of this draft. Like, take us inside a response for Drew, dude, because I talk to people at Texas all the time, and I do hear good things about Kelvin Banks Jr., the person. I see certain people say, though, that both the Texas tackles, as in Kelvin Banks plus Cam Williams, have some work to do. Now, I still think that Kelvin Banks is going to be a first-round pick. I just believe that he's going to be the type of first-round pick to where he's now you're like mid to late first-round pick, right? So your guy that's getting picked anywhere from like 17 to like 32, let's say, which I get is a big range, but I would say he's more so like your 17 to like 24, 25-ish. Like, and I get this guy's played a different position, but if you remember Dallas Turner from last year, there were a hell of a lot of people that had Dallas Turner as edge rusher number 2. But he, I think, was like the 3rd guy off the board, and he went to Minnesota in that 20s round. Like, Kelvin Banks to me this year is Dallas Turner, basically, in the sense of you see the potential there, but you're not really quite sure what he brings to the table. And so it's really just about projecting it to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I saw you were going to... you told me we were going to get to it here, so yeah, I reserved a spot for that. Here's one thing I think is that people are like, well, started 3 years at Texas, only allowed so many sacks or pressures, etc. And that's the same thing that people say about Will Campbell. It's like it's going to be different at the NFL level, and that's the thing. It's all about projection. And when you project, you know, going up against, and again, this is supposed to be offensive, Shamar Stewart types who can't finish and can't sack, you're like, well, look how good I am. Versus Myles Garrett, Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Grenard, like Rashawn Gary, like guys in Aiden Hutchinson, like those guys are a very different level. So that's why arm length, athleticism, their flexibility, all that stuff will come into play. And so Kelvin Banks, to me, when I watch him, I think I've watched probably 3 or 4 games, to be honest. I can't remember which games. Just gives me like you're talking about, like an average, below average tackle type. He's fine. I think that his athleticism is lacking a bit. Sometimes I feel like his feet are slow. I want them to be a little bit quicker to get into position. He already isn't the longest tackle. And again, he's not going to be, we're not talking about Will Campbell wingspan. Okay, his wingspan's fine, but his length, I think he's 33.5-inch arms or something like that. But he's very waist bendy. Okay. And so like a way to like describe that to people in terms of waist benders is your base is obviously your feet and your legs. That's where your power comes from, but you have to get your hips and they have to rotate into blocks. That's where power comes from. And when you don't have the stability, your hips aren't underneath you. You're bending forward You're bending too far back, and when you're doing this much, right, your balance goes way off. And I don't like his balance. His balance comes up more so, I think, in the run game than in the pass game. But in terms that goes into account with in terms of double teams and things like that too. So I see his balance becoming a factor. And again, this is one of those things where you project if this is a factor in college, some, not a ton, some, it's going to be a factor more in the NFL. And he's on the ground quite a bit. And that's just stuff that I see, okay? And then I go off of guys that know more about O-line play than me. And like I said, there's multiple experts. Like here, I'll read Duke's. Right up here, people are like, hey, what do you think of Kelvin Banks? Again, so shout out, he's at Big Duke 50 on Twitter, Duke Manyweather. O-line prospects go out to him and work with him to improve. He said, I think he'd be an excellent guard. Out of the top offensive tackles in his draft, he's a lesser athlete. You see it on tape. It reflects in his testing compared to other top tackles. He tested more like a guard. He gets out of position a lot. His feet aren't efficient. It hurts his ability to recover and pass pro. In the run game, he doesn't close space well and gets thrown off of blocks. And then Brandon Thord said that was, right on target. So, yeah, I guess some of the stuff I said popped up there. Some of the things I said didn't pop up there. But, like, to me, if we're wondering this much, hey, what position does he play? We already settled on guards. And if you're like, hey, let's draft a replacement if Joe Tooney isn't extended, you don't do that at 10. You do that in day 2, and you develop a guy. So to me, I think it would be a single that you're trying to hit and mismanage of value to waste the 10th pick on a guy that may not be able to stick at tackle. It might not even be better than Braxton Jones, and you have to have him wait at guard. That just seems like a waste to me.
Yeah, and those are some really good points there. Looking forward to the future here. If the Bears don't take an offensive tackle this weekend, then it's time to officially start the Caden Proctor hype train, because he's 6'7", 360 almost. So for all you guys that are like, oh, well, the Bears didn't take an offensive tackle because none of them were big enough. I mean, I think a guy that's 6'7", 360, pretty good, in terms of the 2026 draft. But I also think that the Bears may not have a chance to pick him. So I think they're picking at 32 overall next year, but we shall see. Okay, so let's dive into some of the Mike Green stuff. You look at some of the edge rushers here, and it's very clear that it's like Abdul Carter, everyone else below, right? The hard part about projecting some of these edge rushers here is the simple fact that it's like, I think Mike Green really freaking good. I think a lot of people had James Spears Jr. as edge rusher number 2, but again, that was solely based on traits. First off, I had someone tell me that Jalen Walker and Michael Williams were the next comings of Leonard Floyd, okay, which is not necessarily true at all, because if you look at Michael Williams, I think, is like 6'3", 6'4", right? So Michael Williams is a freaking athlete, okay? Jalen Walker's 6'1", and if Jalen Walker is going to make a name for himself at the next level, it's going to be as an off-ball linebacker. It is not going to be as a hybrid linebacker / edge rusher, okay? Micah Parsons, by the way, who was this like hybrid linebacker / edge rusher, was a little bit bigger than Jalen Walker as well, okay? Leonard Floyd, I feel like, was kind of in a class of its own because he was a freaking damn good athlete. He could just never put the athlete plus the football player together. You want to say something? Because every time you mute your mic, I know you, or unmute it, I know you want to say something.
But to me, like, I struggle with these guys. It's like, what position do they play? If they didn't figure out in college, you think of, like, you talked about Leonard Floyd, I brought up Hassan Reddick before, and people are like, well, look, he had all those sacks. Well, he was lost for 3 years in Arizona. Like, is he linebacker? Is he going to play edge? And then he figured it out year 4, 5, 6, 7. But, like, even then, that's a waste of a rookie contract. Isaiah Simmons, they couldn't figure out where he plays. I mean, and also, he's got short arms. He weighs 243 pounds. Like, if you talk about Mike Green not fitting in this defense, I don't see Jamal or Jalen Walker fitting at edge at all.
Yeah, it's this kind of weird dynamic.
And he's 6'1". He's not even tall.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think what it is this, right? So, okay, let's just diving into some of the stuff regarding Mike Green, right? Like, you're getting a guy that's 6'3", 251. I think what you're really getting is an overall solid freaking player. And then I think what you're also getting is the type of player who can be damn effective when it comes to everything, right? Like, The best thing to me about Mike Green is the high motor that he plays with. And everyone, I think, looks at this Dennis Allen defense, and they say, well, the ideal guy is Cam Jordan. Okay, Cam Jordan, to me, again, really good player. Mike Green, I think, has a motor that's very similar to Cam Jordan in the sense that he's just always constantly going. The energy for him definitely seems to be there. And then I also think that when you look at Mike Green, in terms of the overall makeup, the hot take I have here is this, and I want to get your opinion on it. Is he the best pure pass rusher in this class? Just from like a pure pass rusher standpoint, is Mike Green the best in your opinion? Because to me, I think that he is.
Yeah, I think he is too. I think Abdul Carter's a better athlete, and he's better in terms of going around the edge and athleting people. But I think Mike Green has a lot more counters already in his game. He's, I think, more mature from that aspect. But I think Carter certainly will get there. But I think that you could certainly make that case.
Yeah, and just looking at some of these guys' measurables here, right? I think it's incredibly telling how we really don't know what Abdul Carter's arm length is, right? We don't know what his hand length is either. We do know that Abdul Carter's 6'3", 250, okay? Whereas look at Mike Green. Mike Green is 6'3", 251 pounds. He's got 32-inch arms and then 8.5-inch hands, okay? So to me, part of the...
So sorry, those are tiny hands, by the way. I will say that one. 8.5 is tiny. And you go through... So Carter's arms are about a half inch longer, but his hands are over an inch bigger, and Jalen Walker's are 2 inches bigger, almost 2 inches bigger than... there. So if people are wondering, if you're watching the video, that's thumb to pinky. That's how they measure it. It's not like palm up. It's kind of like the width of your hand, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so some other quick numbers here, right? To me, again, we've talked about some of the James Pierce Jr. stuff, but I will say this, if some of this off-field stuff about James Pierce Jr. wasn't necessarily out there, maybe James Pierce Jr. is a guy to watch for the Bears, right? Now, it's entirely possible that the Bears could take him. But James Pierce Jr. is interesting because he's 6'5", 245. He's got 32 and a quarter inch arms, I believe. And then he has 10-inch hands, right? So he is closer in terms of the length. The length and the strength. James Pierce Jr. is much better than Mike Green. He grades out much better than Mike Green. But then the other big thing to keep in mind is when you look at them just as athletes, I mean, they're pretty much the exact same athletes. But I will say this, because of the extra length, you're taking a bigger risk with James Pierce Jr. because you're combining damn good athlete with freaking big guy in terms of his length, So James Pierce Jr. is very much a project pick to me. Whereas Mike Green, you're looking at him and I'm saying really freaking good pass rusher that is just a natural at his position. The athlete you're getting in Mike Green, the pass rusher you're getting in Mike Green as well. The issue with some of these guys like a Michael Williams and James Pierce Jr. is that you are really trying to freaking project what they can do.
The thing that's different for me is again, it's calculated, y'all. What these guys are going to get tested on. Abdul Carter didn't get testing because of his foot. Okay, so we're hoping that came back good. They think that the stress reaction will be fine. But so Mike Green didn't do the testing at the combine, did it at the pro day. And crushed, okay? But James Pierce Jr., if you look at him, 6'5", 245. So again, he's lighter than Mike Green and taller. So he's skinnier, okay? Longer, arms, etc. So if you look at that athlete, right? People talk about Ted McMillan, can't get in and out of breaks. It's because you're tall. Brandon Marshall, tall. You're not going to be as quick as, your Wes Welker types. So James Pierce Jr. got tested in 10-yard split, vertical, broad jump, 40. He didn't do 3-cone. He didn't do short shuttle. And to me as a pass rusher, I care about 3-cone. I care about short shuttle. I care about 10-yard split. That's about it. I want to know how you can bend. I want to know how quick you are with reacting to alignment and stuff like that. So we have that stuff with Mike Green. We don't necessarily have that stuff with James Pierce Jr. And the other thing is this. There's both off the field questions with those two. One is projected in round 2 now, has fallen down, I think, to that range, while one has been 15 to Atlanta or higher is basically where they've been the whole time, which I think speaks to maybe even with the comfortability with where James Pierce's character stuff is too.
Yeah, that is. I mean, again, with some of these pass rushers, it's kind of a wait and see because it's like the weird part about the pass rusher position is it a premium position? Hell yeah, it is. But like I go back and I look at last year's draft, and I mean, let's be honest about something, right? Like Leitu Latu was the first pass rusher off the board. Okay, and again, last year was offense until I think the 15th pick, okay? Like Leitu Latu, first guy off the board. But then people also had Dallas Turner. And I think my guy who I wanted for the Bears at number 9 was Jared Verse. I wanted Verse or Fashanu, just saying, and both of them look to be pretty good players right now, which means that I probably know something that a lot of y'all don't, okay? But here's the thing. So if you look at the pass rushers, right, that have kind of been taken dating back to last year, like people had problems with Leitu Latu, okay? People also had issues with Dallas Turner. I think that the problem with Leitu Latu was people were never really sure about the medicals. And then you look at Dallas Turner. I mean, here's a guy that was 6'3", 247, okay? So you're getting a player who was significantly smaller, but kind of as a rookie came in, found a way to make an impact. But also I look at Dallas Turner. I mean, he had 36-inch arms almost and just under 10-inch hands, but was a freaking better athlete than James Pierce Jr. in my opinion, but also Michael Williams in my opinion. And so I kind of look at this whole thing and like keep in mind Turner slipped to 22, So this whole thing right here, like the league has basically made it this like completely wide open thing about like, oh yeah, you're a pass rusher in college, that's cool, but that's cute. Let's see what you can do at the NFL level, because that's ultimately what it is at this point in terms of the different measurables that are coming in that are pushing guys up the board or down the board.
Yeah, and like Latu, I think had a much more complete package of pass rushing moves, and that's why he went 7 picks ahead of Turner, who was younger. I feel like, and people think of more maybe upside, but people, because part of it's like, all right, this is going to get into one of my other takes because it's about a pass rusher, but like, if you don't show it in college against lesser competition, why are you going to show it in the NFL against better competition? And so, one of my things is, and again, my no list at 10 is Jalen Walker's on there just because I'd rather let someone else gamble on what position he plays for Chicago. Like, I don't want him in Chicago. Shamar Stewart is definitely on that list. Now, again, I understand that I said home run, not a single. People are like, athlete, home run. Lucas Van Ness, they're like, hey, athlete with some traits, he'll develop into something. Tyree Wilson, remember him, y'all? I'm glad Chicago didn't get him. Same type of like I feel like there's always these types of guys like, let's just get them and they'll morph into whatever. I mean, heck, even Kayvon Thibodeau is not really working out great in New York. Like they're debating getting Abdul Carter and maybe not picking up his 5th-year option. So he's definitely on my no-no list. But continuing the pass rushing thing is Mykel Williams. So Mykel Williams is a little bit in the middle for me, okay? He was definitely more productive than Shamar Stewart, not nearly as productive as Abdul Carter and Mike Green. He's young. He's like, of these, I like how they're all young. So he's 20 and change. Literally everyone else we're talking about is 21 and change, which is good, okay? So they're younger, so you're hoping things can still develop. But this dude's big. Like 6'5", 267, 34 and 3/8-inch arms, 10 1/4-inch hands, 82 7/8 arm length, like big dude. Now again, I know Shamar Stewart's big, but we already talked about why we don't want him. No production. Here's the hot take, okay? And I'm not a big Mykel Williams guy. I would be better. It would make more sense to me if the Bears drafted him at 10 than Kelvin Banks Jr.
Okay, I can totally see it. That's all I'm going to say about that because we talked about Kelvin Banks Jr. extensively. So I want to dive a little bit more into your analogy of like, hey, I want a home run, but I want a home run, not a single, okay, as it pertains to the second round. I look at the second round and I say it's one of the better second rounds. It's not as deep of a draft class, obviously, but this is still one of the better second rounds that we've seen over the last couple of years. So, to me, in the second round, the first hot take I have is that the Bears should use 39th overall to trade back into the first round, simply because there's probably going to be a team there, cough, the Eagles, for example, that are going to want to, trade out of the first round entirely because they just don't like what they see there. Plus, knowing Howie Roseman, Howie Roseman is interesting because the way that Howie Roseman loves to do things is he wants to stack draft picks, right? So if he can get if he can get out of 32, okay, and get 39 and 64, for example, or he can get out of 32 and have 39, 64, and then 72 and 96. That's a pretty solid window of picks right there. That's evenly spaced out. So the first thing I think is hot take here, but I think the Bears should try to trade back up into the first round, even if it is 32nd overall, for example. Okay? That's the first thing I think the Bears should do. The second thing that I look at here with the Bears, and I say at 39 or 41 is this, and this kind of gets into some of our draft day scenarios, which I totally forgot to share with you, but I'm sending to you via email right now, is this, okay? Is that I look at 39 and 41, I think are, 39, 41, 72, okay? Those are 3 rounds right there where the Bears can address 2 rounds, 3 picks. The Bears can address the trenches and address them heavily in a sense that you are getting some of these project guys that are really going to go ahead and develop into damn good football players. The advantage of having a Jonah Jackson and a Joe Thuney on the roster, especially a guy like a Joe Thuney, is the Bears don't need some of these mid-round picks right now to pop off ASAP. So the advantage is you can sit there, you can let some of them go ahead and develop, okay? Obviously, I will admit, part of me is just hey, this isn't the greatest year to have multiple picks on day 2 and 3 because, in rounds 2 and 3. Because obviously, to me, if a player's being taken in rounds 2 and 3, they should be a day 1 starter, especially round 2, okay? But here, I look at the whole situation, and I'm just I'd be fine with a Donovan Jackson. Well, I'd be fine with, trading back up, especially with a team like Philly. I'd be fine with a guy like a Walter Nolan or a Tate Ratledge or a Donovan Jackson. 3 guys that, are going to come in and be damn good players in the future, but they don't need to be rushed and start ASAP either.
Yeah, so we're kind of on the same page there. I get that one. Talking to your trading up scenario, which I haven't actually thought a lot about. If you get back into round 1, that'll give you that 50 option, right? Mm-hmm. And as we're talking about, that 39-41 range feels way better value wise than 10 does, because 10's who's going to be there. 39-40, oh yeah, tons of guys I like, which kind of tells me don't trade up. But here's the scenario that I'm thinking of in my mind. Let's say you trade up late 1. And it could even be in the 20s, man. Who knows? Because the cost, I feel again, won't be as big because everyone's there's a group of 50 guys here that are kind of the same. What if that's when you move up? And in my notes here, I have, so again, we're going to share the same hot take. I have D tackle on day 2 because I feel it's very, very strong in that group. You're going to get a really good player, a starter, in my opinion. So that's a trenches guy. What if we combine our takes and we don't do that, but they move up from 39 and they get somewhere in there and they get their D tackle of choice, whether that is Walter Nolan, whether that is Kenneth Grant, whether that is Derek Harmon,
Tyleek Williams.
Yeah, it's one of the, I feel those are probably the next tier, those 4. But if they move up and I don't know, maybe it costs 148 and a future 3, or I don't know, whatever it would be. But I think that could definitely be it. Because then if you walk away with someone they like at 10, whoever it was, and you get your future D tackle, who my guess is that means Andrew Billings is going to be gone after next year. I think that could be a really strong draft.
Yeah, and I love that scenario. So here's the other thing, okay? This is a guy who Bears fans were pounding the table for, but then Bears fans ultimately kind of forgot about him, especially after the signing of Drew Dalman. Look, dude, I'll be honest, okay? I've talked to some people at North Dakota State. Gray Zabel, I've talked to some of his teammates too. Mason Miller was on the podcast as well. Like, Gray's not getting the love that he should, okay? He's projected, it's funny how fast things change during the draft, because he was at one point a top 10 pick, okay? Now all of a sudden he's just a first rounder. And then all of a sudden he went from being just a first rounder to now he's just another freaking guy, right? So I will say that if the Bears figure out a way to land a guy like Gray Zabel, I'm completely okay with that because he's your old school offensive lineman, But I will also say this. I think that when you look at the second and third round and you look at D tackles, okay, yeah, Tyler Williams is really good. Walter Nolan, freaking really good as well. Derek Harmon, pretty freaking damn good player. One guy I think that keeps flying under the radar, who I think can be a bit of a project player depending on where you pick him, because if he's there in the third round, like, he's probably a project pick. Darius Alexander out of Toledo. But I would even say this. Let's just say the Bears trade down, and they trade down once or twice, okay? I know you're not on the Google Doc yet. We've got all these draft day scenarios. I mean, the nice part about having a draft where there's tons of projects is that this feels like Ryan Pohl's first draft, right? Where you could trade down a handful of times, you could get a couple projects. Well, maybe Darius Alexander's that guy, maybe Ashton Gillette's that guy, maybe Xavier Restrepo in the 5th round is that guy as well, okay? So I kind of look at all this stuff and I'm just like, there's a help for a team that doesn't have a ton of depth. There's a lot of ways to add depth, but if the Bears are going to trade up, that 39th overall pick is your best asset, okay? And that's back into round 1, going back to the original discussion. If a team's going to trade down, well, then I think the conversation for the Bears about trading down starts at 39, because if you want a bigger haul, you're going to get the bigger haul with 39, I think, as opposed to 41.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I'm just going to talk negatively about Darius Alexander for a minute, okay? And this isn't going to start how people think. I think he's a good player. I think that he's strong. I think he's disruptive. I think he definitely made a name for himself after the season as well. So like the bowl games and things like that. I just don't like taking a guy that's going to be 25 years old before the season starts as my D tackle. 25.
Hey, Velus Jones Jr., baby.
What?
Said Velus Jones Jr. all over again, right?
Well, but I mean, like, okay, so like just looking at that perspective, okay? So Mason Graham, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, they're all 21, going to be 22 during their rookie season. Tyleik Williams will be 22 his whole rookie season. Shamar Turner, another guy that's in that range, will be 22 his whole rookie season. Alfred Collins will turn 24. So to me, like, that's like a whole rookie contract. Like if I got, again, Derek Harmon's my favorite. You had Derek Harmon, who will have almost his whole rookie contract and be younger than Darius Alexander would be his rookie year. So 4 years, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. Like I value that because then you're thinking of what's the value of this player. Darius Alexander, probably just his rookie contract is all you're going to get out of him versus going somewhere else. So I'm an ageist, y'all. I know a lot of people, aren't, but I that's to me, like I talked about the difference between Loveland and Warren is 2 years, but 2 years towards the end of their deal, right, might make, hey, we're going to get 3 deals out of this guy versus 2 contracts out of a guy. So I don't know. I maybe 72. I'll be more open to a guy that's going to be 25, but 39 and 41, I can't really do it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see, right? All right. I mean, I'm out of hot takes. Do you have any more, dude? Because I'm sure you got a couple. Looking at how many times you smiled down at your list.
Yeah, I got. Yeah, okay. I'll try and go quickly because I know we got, excuse me, some scenarios here. Okay, another one is this: trading down at 10 with negative value. So again, like whatever the charts say, is a win over drafting a player at 10, even if Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland are there. Even if it's Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell or Armand Membu, in my opinion. Not Genty, because I love Genty. So basically, anyone besides Genty or Graham, who I don't think will be there, maybe they'll be there. I'll be happy. I think trading down at negative value is better. And I gave one of these scenarios on Twitter. I was like, okay, they move down from 10 to 14. The Colts move up for Tyler Warren, and they get the 80th pick. And someone's like, you need way more than that. And I'm like, 80th pick in this draft is actually not bad. That could be, an O-lineman. That could be your running back. You can get your Damian Martinez, your RJ Harvey, et cetera there. Or you talked about Harold Fannin Jr. Now you have way more flexibility. So to me, I wouldn't trade down. And again, it could be a short trade down, could be a long trade down. I would trade down at negative value over drafting the guy at 10, because I think that's going to be better for the Bears than hoping that at 10 that this guy is going to be long enough, arm length, or can play this other position or have a bigger impact than I think they really will.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point. Anyways, Ben Johnson's at the Cubs game today, so this guy should be at Halas Hall. Here's the hot take, right? He should be at Halas Hall evaluating draft prospects, but here this guy is enjoying baseball. There's plenty of time after the draft to enjoy baseball. All right.
I've got two more.
All right, go ahead.
Maybe he can convince the Cubs to extend Kyle Tucker. That'd be awesome. All right. So running back, I've been very steadfast on this one, and it gets more and more ingrained in me. Ashton Genty, either trading up or at 10, or I'm not touching one until 72 or later. Y'all, there's even more guys. I was an I just talked about age, so now I'm a hypocrite. I was an anti RJ Harvey guy who's 24 right now.
UCF, right?
UCF. Man, he's good. Like, I could see him being good. I've like the group at 39.41. I just don't think it's a good value. I know people are gaga over Travion Henderson. His running between the tackles is not good. And he had huge rushing lanes at Ohio State with a good offensive line. We talked about Donovan Jackson. The lanes were huge, and his eyes and head are down. When he gets to second level, I want him to cut. I just don't see it, y'all. Like, yes, highlights, you put in YouTube highlights, Travion Henderson. Oh, watch this one reception against Texas. Yes, one reception against Texas. He had 11 carries, I think was as high on the year in a game. Well, I mean, that's your next running back in Chicago. Like, can he handle the workload? We haven't seen that one. I know he's a good pass protector. He's a good, pass catcher. He could be your change of pace guy. We already have that in DeAndre Swift. Judkins, I like him. I don't love him. Caleb Johnson, we already know my thoughts. Like, I don't love the guy. I think he's fine. But 72, I think, is that sweet spot where they can start with that group. Dylan Sampson's okay. Cam Scadaboo I talked about. Even later on, like, I don't mind Jordan James. Brashard Smith, I think, could be that change of pace type of guy. Like, there's a tons of running backs later. So anyways, my hot take there is either round 3 or day 3 for running back, I would be fine with, if it's not Genty. Okay. Last one is this, man, before I'll hit back to you. I would be okay waiting until round 3s through 5, assuming there's a trade down, so round 4 if you got to pick there, for O-line development. There's a lot of guys there I think that you could get, and I think that the value-wise would make a little bit more sense. So we interviewed a guy that I think would be a great interior development in Jackson Slater. Tested out athletically well, can play center, can play guard. Charles Grant, long-armed guy out of William & Mary. Wyatt Millham, tough guy. West Virginia, has some positional versatility. Miles Frazier, LSU. Like, there's a lot of guys I like that I think rounds 3 through 5, which if you go back and you look at Detroit, they would get guys there and develop. The only first-round picks on that line are Frick Ragnow and both tackles. The guards are developmental guys. The Eagles develop guys all the time, too. Some in round 2. I get that part of it. But they get Jordan Mailata later. Like you have to develop guys later. It can't just all be first round picks and spending $17 million on guys. We have to work some of these guys in. I think Dan Rashard will have a good say there.
Yeah, and I don't have any more hot takes, but you referenced some of the alignments. So if you guys head to our YouTube channel right now, there are 3 offensive lineman interviews we did. Number 1 was Sacramento State's Jackson Slater. Number 2 was North Dakota State's Mason Miller, and then number 3 was Augustana College's Kane Johnson. From what I know, the last I heard, Kane has told me that he's talked to the Bears and the Vikings. Okay. Mason has talked to a hell of a lot of teams in the league, but not the Bears yet. Now, this was obviously about 5 to 6 weeks ago, so things can certainly change. Now, we know that the Bears love their local guys. Okay, so I would not be surprised to see Kane, who, again, is from Augustana College, which is a very small D3 school in southern Illinois. Southern Central Illinois. What's up?
I coached against them one time.
Yeah, so, and I mean, they played, UW Platteville, and I've got some, know some people from UW Platteville, but, so Kane is, I think what the Bears would look for, because he's big, he's tall, he's lanky, works his butt off, pretty muscular as well. Same with Mason, right? Like, Mason's athletic, but he's also got a hell of a lot of positional versatility that I fully believe makes him a interesting player to go ahead and watch. But yeah, so I think the point is, dude, is that there's so much like really intriguing stuff going on here. We will actually be doing a draft preview with Zach Pearson and Steven Johnson on Wednesday night, where I do expect we've got 6 total scenarios, so we'll talk about some of those scenarios in this Google Doc as well. Share the screen. Before we get out of here, make sure you're following us on Twitter at Usayd, Koshul, at _Nick Whalen, at Halas. Check out the Picks for Polls podcast. Andrew Freeman and I just did our final mock drafts of the year, complete with tons of breakdowns. Be sure to go ahead and check out the Bear Report website as well. Like I said, I'll be at Halas Hall for the draft. Zach Pearson will be there too, so expect to see a lot of really good coverage. We're going to be blasting stuff out on social media. Check out a lot of our scouting reports that are posted on the website as well. I think I did about 48 to 49 of them this year. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and don't forget, I'll be live on draft day through the Bears pick on 10 and on day 2 through 39 41 with Steven, and then maybe Usayd or Zach will pop in too. So make sure you guys are like getting ready for that one, because I know that's going to be a busy day. So just make sure that's bookmarked so that you guys don't forget about it.
And again, we'll have, a couple live streams for you guys throughout draft weekend as well. But enjoy the weather. I think the sun just came out here in Illinois. It was kind of a rainy evening last night plus rainy morning. Bear down, and we will see you guys next time.